Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Private Practice Podcast. If you could hear a little bit of a rustle then, it's just me. You're in the car. We're going on a road trip again. Yes, this is just a good time for me to be able to talk with you. I'm coming back from the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. It's Friday afternoon, and on my way home I like to stop at Acland Street in St Kilda and go to a cake shop called Monarch Cakes, and from there I get like a little meringue and a cake called Rigor and French gâteau for my mum, and I get a bottle of water for myself for the drive home, and it's so much fun. And just now I'm about to turn onto Barclay Street, which is where there's the National Theatre, and the National Theatre is very, very special for a couple of reasons. When I was growing up, I was doing competitive dance, and I used to have to come to the National Theatre when I was doing things like my Royal Academy of Dance, or RAD, classical ballet examinations and things like that. And also my mum used to work with a lady called June Beaverstock, and they used to make costumes for the Royal Australian Ballet Theatre up here, and make them and decorate them and, you know, bedazzle them and all the things. And yeah, so it's not a very big theatre, but it's a very old theatre, and it's just got a very, very, very special place in my heart. So you're on the drive home now, which is loads of fun. And what have we got here? Well, we've got a little bit of a detour, because now Acland Street is where Luna Park is in Melbourne, and Luna Park is having a little bit of a facelift at the moment. I can see there's a lot of scaffolding. There's a lot of scaffolding here. So lots happening. So it'll be interesting to see how we get back onto the main road, but that's okay. What I thought we would talk about today is the user experience in therapy. And I thought I would start by sharing a little bit of a story that I had, and I shared it with a girlfriend this morning. You've heard me mention her before. Her name's Kim, and I was saying, I was thinking this is podcast worthy, and she said, you should definitely do a podcast on this. So here we are doing a podcast on it. So the user experience is something that is often overlooked in therapy, and it's very, very important that we nail it and that we get it right, because it has such a big impact that maybe you aren't aware of on things like your business growth, on the financial health and well-being of the business, on your marketing, and on your brand reputation. So let's dive in and begin with a little bit of a case study, but it's more like a self-case study, because I'm going to tell you about my experience. So when was it? I'm not going to say when it was. Oh no, I'll tell you when it was. A couple of weeks ago, I decided that I was going to go and see a psychologist, right? I wanted to go get some support, get some help, and see a psychologist. And I wanted to try something new. And I found a psychologist that specialized in psychoanalysis. So she's a qualified psychoanalyst. She's been trained overseas at, some very well-established, well-known, famous institutions. She's got all the credentials. She's a member of the Australian Psychological Society. She's actually a fellow of the Australian Psychological Society. And she is also a clinical psychologist. So anyway, I thought, let's give it a shot, because you know me, like I did my PhD. I was one of the first women in Australia first people in Australia to research CBT. And we all know how that took off. Went really, really well, didn't it? And it's all evidence-based and things like that. So that's my background, but you also know that I'm very open to trying different things. So I knew CBT wasn't going to work for the things that I wanted to discuss. And I thought, yeah, let's try something different, and that's why I booked in with this lady. And so it was really interesting because although as therapists we all go and get our own therapy, I don't know about you, but I still get nervous when I go and see a therapist for the first time. Anyway, so I was nervous, and it was such a big deal because this was what I wanted to share with her was like really big and really raw and really deep, you know. And so when I was looking, I wanted to make sure that I found the right person and all that sort of stuff. And anyway, the day comes along and I'm so excited, and I go there and I'm about 5 minutes early, and I arrive and it's a clinic that is an old house that's now being converted into a practice. So if you can imagine, there's a lounge room with a big heater, you know, one of those wall heaters from like the 60s that glows orange, and it's got the burnt brown tiles around the outside. It's that kind of a vibe, you know, and they've replaced the curtains with these brown wooden Venetians and stuff, you know, given it a lick of paint and replaced the carpet, but you can still kind of smell the stale cigarette smoke through the paint, you know, that it gives it the charm. Anyway, so I'm in there and I'm waiting, and I'm really nervous because there's nobody at reception. And I'm okay with that because being a psychologist, I have actually worked myself and consulted myself in places like this. So I know there's never really a receptionist, and that the therapists just generally go and hire a room on a casual basis or maybe a permanent basis, whatever. So I was fine with it, all good. The appointment was for 3 o'clock. It got to 3:10, and you know, I was starting to feel like a bit nervous and worried because she hadn't shown up. Anyway, just after that, this lady comes out, and she's coming out into reception to do something, and she was surprised to see a person waiting. That was me. And when she spoke to me, she said, "Oh, can I help you?" And I said, "Oh," and I recognized the accent, and I knew straight away that she was the lady I was meant to be seeing. And I said, "Yeah, my name's Brooklyn. We've got an appointment. We had one for 3 o'clock. And she started patting herself down, you know, and she's like, are you sure it's today, and all of this. So she forgot my appointment, basically. And that made me feel like, you know, oh, that's a bit disappointing that, you know, my therapist has forgotten that I've got an appointment with her on the first day. And then she said, "Oh, it's all right, I could still see you coming." And I followed her in, and she takes me into this consulting room, and to be honest, it wasn't very welcoming space. It was painted in sort of like a soft yellow colour, but it had a grey couch that looked like it had come from an op shop, and there was some kind of, you know, throw on it that looked very like maybe batik style, you know, tie-dyed sort of thing, and it wasn't anything like I expected. And the furniture was very mismatched, you know. There was this random wooden desk with a chair that didn't match, with a coffee table that was also wood but didn't match. So that was the vibe. And she just sort of plopped down straight away, and she was like, "Okay, so tell me why you're here." It threw me because, you know, she didn't ask me to fill out any paperwork, and the reason I got there a few minutes early was so that I didn't lose time in my session filling out paperwork. So yeah, the fact that she was like, "Yeah, sit down, tell me what's up," and she just sort of sat there, and she had a exercise book, and she started taking some notes while we were talking, and that was fine. I didn't mind that she was taking notes during the session. But really what ended up happening was I shared my whole story, and then it got to 3:50, and she said to me, "Okay, well, we're going to have to finish up there now." And I thought, oh, okay. And she gave me a consent form and said, "Oh, you know what this is, you know, can you sign it," sort of thing. And I said, "Yeah, okay." So I signed the consent form. And then she said, "Oh, can you pay me?" And I said, "Yep, sure." So I got out my EFTPOS card, and she goes, "Oh, no, I prefer bank transfer." And I was thinking, oh gosh, now it's all getting complicated, because she had written in very fine print on the bottom of the consent form her BSB and account number. So she gives me back the consent form and runs their finger along the bottom to show me where the account number and BSB is and what her full name is and everything. And I didn't have my glasses, so I'm saying, "Can you read it out I'm saying, can you read it out, and she's telling me the BSB and account number, and I'm trying to type it into my phone, just hoping to goodness that I get it right, and I make the payment and everything. And I said to her, would you like my referral? Because I did have a referral with me. I said, would you like my referral? And she said, oh, yeah. But she never even read the referral. I thought, okay. And then she said to me, look, I really like to work weekly. And I said, okay. And she said, so can you come back on Monday at 3 o'clock next week? Being the Monday that we just had. And I said, yep, sure, no problem. And she said, yeah, and from there we will, make a plan and we're going to do all this stuff. And I said, okay. So I kind of left feeling mixed, right? I felt upset that she forgot my appointment. I felt upset that I got robbed of 40 minutes of my appointment but still charged for a full hour. I felt upset that, she didn't do an intake and that there wasn't any, asking me stuff. So that felt weird. And then what else was feeling weird? Oh yeah, just that at the time that I was there, I was doing all of the talking and she didn't say boo. And it wasn't her approach and it wasn't psychoanalysis. She just didn't say anything. And, I was waiting at times for her to say something and she just kind of repeated exactly what I said. It wasn't even paraphrasing. And I just thought, do you even know what you're doing? And obviously she does. I mean, she's highly qualified and trained, but I felt like there was no connection. And I felt like I hadn't been heard, basically, because she wasn't giving me anything. Anyway, I just told myself, put your thoughts aside for a little while and go back next week and see how you go. And next week's going to be awesome because you're going to be able to get some new insights into your problems, and she's going to use her skills and her strategies to open new doors and help you see things in new ways that could be very, very helpful. She's going to build your awareness around things. This is going to be great. This is exactly what you need. And so I was actually really excited to go to the appointment when Monday came. And I got down and I was there 5 minutes early again because, I want to be on time. I'm a Virgo. It's very important to me. Even when I do my pop-up workshops, even when I do, we do supervision in the Diploma Counsellors Society, even when we do the coaching calls with PP 101, I'm like, right, our call is at 9 o'clock. And even if there's only one person on the call, I start at 9 o'clock. And everybody else, if they come in late, they come in late and they can just watch the replay. I'm not one of these people who says, well, we'll just do some small chit-chatty talk and wait and give people, the latecomers, some. No, I respect your time. You did the right thing by turning up at 9 o'clock. I'm going to start at 9 o'clock and give you my best stuff. So anyway, that's just me and that's how I roll. So I was there 5 minutes early and I messaged Kim and I was like, yeah, I'm at the psych, I'm so excited, blah, 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 blah. 10 minutes later, I message her again and go, oh my gosh, I think she's forgotten that she's got an appointment with me again. Like, she's late. I hope she comes. And then I phoned the psychologist and I got her voicemail, went straight to voicemail. And I said, hey, it's Brooklyn. We've got an appointment for 3 o'clock. Just wondering where you are. Is everything okay? We're just letting you know I'm in reception. Because there's no way to let people know when you get to this particular place that you've arrived. There's no little bell to ring. There's nothing. So I thought maybe she just doesn't know that I'm here. So I was just letting her know, yeah, I am here and I'm out of reception, and nothing happened. So then I sent her a text message because I thought maybe she's just like on her computer mucking around. Like maybe she's just like, I don't know, catching up on her notes from the previous client, or maybe she's on Google or something like that. So I will send her a text message. So I sent her a text message just pretty much reiterating what I said in the voicemail and still nothing. And now I've gone from being, my anxiety is increasing because I'm thinking I'm going to miss out on my appointment. She's so late. I'm really going to miss out on my appointment and I don't want to miss out on my appointment. This is so important to me, and oh, please don't let her have forgotten again. And it got to 3:22. There was no return call. There was no text message. I was the only one in the whole building as far as I was aware. I couldn't hear noise coming from any other room. And so I was angry because I thought, I can't believe you've forgotten about me again. This is the second time. And so I got in the car and I was just crying because I felt so let down, and I felt so like, how could you do this to somebody? Like, it takes so much courage to go and get help. And then you do this, not once, but twice. And it's not acceptable, right? So then I started to get quite angry. And I still didn't hear back from her. I got a text message from her at lunchtime the next day. And she said, "Oh, hi, Brooklyn, thank you for your message. Our appointment was for a different time." And I said, "No, it wasn't, because I put it in my calendar and I remember you wrote it down on a scrap bit of paper." So that first appointment that we had, where she forgot that I was there, she just had a note. She had a notepad while she was taking notes in the session. At the end of the session, when she said, "I want to see you next week, how's 3:00?" I said, "That's fine." And I put 3:00 in my Google Calendar straight away. And she tore out a bit of paper from her notebook and she wrote down the appointment time on it. So anyway, I said, "No, our appointment was for 3 p.m. I remember it clearly. You also wrote it down on a scrap bit of paper." Like, she didn't even put it on her diary. Her laptop was closed. So anyway, and on top of that, because I was so excited to have this appointment, while I was waiting in reception, I thought I'd get, what do you call it? I was going to say I thought you'd get a leg up, but that's not the right way. That's not the right expression. I thought I would get a jump on things maybe and do the right thing. And so I prepaid my session while I was waiting for her, because I just thought it was so awkward having to deal with the money at the end and not having my glasses and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't want to go through that again. So I just thought, I'll pay for it now so I don't have to do it, right? So I was just out there killing time and paid for the appointment before I had it. So then I also said to her in this message, by the way, I prepaid for that appointment yesterday. Could you please send that payment back to me, as I didn't have it? And she wrote back, "Yeah, what's your BSB and account, and I'll send that to you." And do you know, she sent it to me. She sent the payment back to me yesterday, which was Thursday. The appointment was Monday. I mean, this is so bad, right? And do you know what? She never once in her text messages to me apologised. Not once. And that made me feel bad as well. And I understand what it's like to forget about a client or to forget about a client appointment. Like, we're all human, and from time to time we make mistakes. It's certainly happened to me. Not so much when I've been working for myself, but definitely it happened to me when I was working at the bulk billing medical clinics. Because what would happen was I would go to the clinic, and in the morning the girls would print off the diary page for the day, and that had all the appointments on, and they would just come in and let me know, "Oh, your 11 o'clock cancelled," or "your 12:20 cancelled," or something. I'd go, "Okay," and I'll cross their name off my list. And there were times when I'd had a cancellation and I thought, great, I'll go and get a bite to eat, or I'll nip into Coles next door and, get milk and bread for later on tonight. And as I'd be going out, or maybe even as I was returning, a receptionist would say, "Oh, your client's been here waiting for you for, half an hour." But I never realised, because nobody had told me that there was a client actually waiting there. So I felt bad for those clients, and I did everything I could to make it up to them, and I apologised and I did all of that. But with this lady, there was not even an acknowledgement of what my experience must have been like to have this happen twice now. And then she sends me another text message saying, "If you like, you can come back tonight at 6 o'clock, or I can see you on Friday at 9 a.m. or Wednesday next week at 10 a.m. or something." And I just replied to her and I said, "No, thank you, it won't be necessary.
And then she wrote another message that said, wish you all the best. What else did she say? My door is always open for when you decide that you want to work on this. And I thought, I already did decide I wanted to work on it. Like, I was so, let down. And I said, I already did decide I want to. I didn't say that to her, but in my mind, I was like, I already did decide I wanted to work on it. But I just didn't reply. I just sort of let it go. And I know not to talk about this while I'm still in the middle of processing it, so I won't. It's probably a whole other episode to discuss. But the point is, as a client or as a consumer, as a user of the service, I had a very negative experience. And there were so many things that went wrong with this relationship and that went wrong with this interaction, that it got me thinking about how important it is that as private practice owners and as therapists, we're very, very mindful of the user experience. So let's break it down a little bit, because this is something that if you're in PP 101, become a certified private practice, this is something that is drummed into you, as drummed into the course, it's drummed into the students there, because it is so, so, so important. The students are given processes for onboarding, for working with people, and for offboarding, and then for client retention. And this experience that I've just had didn't have any of those elements. So it really was, 180 degrees opposite to what I feel good private practice is, could be, and should be. Not only for you as a private practice owner, but for your clients, for your valuable clients. If you don't have clients, you don't have a practice, right? Now, this psychologist has just lost me as a client. Just lost me. That's affected her practice. That's now affected her revenue. It's affected her cash flow. It's affecting her, it's not affecting her reputation, because I won't tell you the name, but I'm certainly not going to be referring clients to her, let's just say. Do you know what I mean? It's affected so many different things, and it affected me as well as a client in other ways, because of course part of what happened to me was, I was so vulnerable with this person and I got nothing. I'm just I'm still left open and raw from it. There hasn't been any healing, there hasn't been any closure, nothing. Not only for the situation that I wanted to work on in therapy, but for what's happened with her and I, and that whole experience. So now it makes me want to withdraw again, compartmentalize everything again, put it away, lock it away, and maybe deal with it down the track in the future when I'm strong enough again and resilient enough again to put myself through it. And even hearing myself say put myself through it is so telling, because that shouldn't be how a client views counselling with their therapist, putting themselves through it, right? It should be a joyful journey, not always joyful. Of course, there's going to be raw emotions and big feelings and all of that, but it should overall be a joyful journey, right? You don't want to be hating going to therapy. You don't want to be hoping your therapist remembers that you've got an appointment. I don't know. Anyway, so as I said, we're going to break it down a little bit. So what went wrong here? I think first off, what went wrong was she didn't have our appointment in her diary to begin with. So, and the appointment was made over email. Now, you know how I feel about that. It should always be a booking button. Always be a booking button. It helps the client and it helps you as a practitioner, because you know you've got an appointment. Plus, it will automatically send out a confirmation, and it will send a reminder, and you can get paid, and the client can actually pay when they book that initial appointment. Now, my whole experience as a client would have been so much better if she'd had a booking button. She could have remembered the appointment. I could have paid for it. She could have automatically sent out intake paperwork, which I could have happily completed, while I was watching TV that night and an ad break was on or something like that. I could have happily completed the intake forms then. I could have absolutely made the payment then. Do you know what I mean? And then I would have got a reminder, SMS 48 hours prior to the appointment. She would have known about it because she'd be getting all the alarms and bells and notifications and whistles in Galaxy or Power Diary or whatever she's using. So that all would have worked really, really well. The second thing that was missing was any form of onboarding. In fact, there was zero onboarding. She didn't even get me to fill out a form. There was no intake. But not only that, there was no welcome. There was no making me feel safe in the physical space. There was no, the room itself wasn't inviting. I didn't feel nurtured and nourished and whole and safe. It felt like the room had been put together from, the local trash and treasure with random bits of furniture sort of strewn about. There was a tissue box there, but there wasn't anything nice. Like, it was just like a strange, weird, awkward space that clearly wasn't hers. There weren't any books around. It kind of looked like just any man and his dog uses this space. But even if there's a room that's being used by multiple practitioners, it's a multi-purpose space, you can still make it inviting with the right furnishings. There was no diffuser, there was no fresh flowers, there was no little bowl of chocolates or lint balls, there was no cushions, there was no throw rug, there was no plant in the room, there was no painting or picture on the wall. Do you know what I mean? Just all these little things really mean so much. Third off, there was no welcome packet. And that was really disappointing to see. Like, I would have really loved to have seen a welcome packet because it could have really helped me prepare for our first session together. Being somebody who uses a therapeutic approach that I'm unfamiliar with, it would have been very helpful for me to know what to expect in the first session and to know how to prepare, because it's expensive and I want to make sure I'm getting bang for my buck, and I want to make sure that I'm getting value. I want to get every single minute of value I can. And so if there's things that I can do myself in terms of prep that could help with that, that would be amazing. But there was no welcome pack, so I had none of that information. I also didn't have information about contact details, about communicating with her between sessions. There was no information there about fees. Oh, this was the other thing. I found her on Psychology Today, and she had her fees on Psychology Today. And at the end of the appointment, she said to me, "Oh, could you please pay me?" And I said, "Yep, no problem, happy to do that." As I said to you, I whipped out my card and she was like, "No, I want a bank transfer." And I said, "Okay." And I was going to pay the amount that I remembered seeing on the Psychology Today website. And before I could process a payment, she says to me, "How much would you like to pay today?" And I was thrown by that. And I said, "Oh, I beg your pardon?" And she said, "Yeah, how much can you afford to pay?" And I said, "Oh, I don't understand." And she goes, "Yeah, well, I'm just asking, what would you like to pay?" I thought, that's so weird. And I said, "I'd like to pay the fee that was on Psychology Today." I mean, I didn't know. What was she expecting me to say? And then she goes, "Okay." And then she was shuffling forms, pieces of paper, and she handed me one. And so I just paid the amount that was on it. It's so weird. Anyway, so there are a few key things that were missed that certainly could have made the user experience a lot better for me as the client. The next thing, I guess, is like the actual consultation. So first off, it's really helpful to remember that you've got an appointment with a client. So from time to time, you're going to forget. And it happens to all of us. We forget that we've got a client appointment for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes clients cancel and reschedule, and they do it on the fly with us, and we accommodate them and we say, "Yes, that's fine. Instead of today at 2:00, come next Thursday at 3:00. I'll put it in the diary." And before we've had a chance to put it in the diary, we get distracted with something else. And either we book a different client in, and so we end up having two clients turn up at the same time, or, we just forget. So I understand, but if she'd had a process in place, that could have been avoided. The other thing too is there was an absence of, as I said before, like intake, even in the in-person session. So normally what would happen is, as you know, when you have a first appointment with somebody, it's history taking. There wasn't any of that with this lady. I'm not saying she's a bad therapist or anything. I'm just saying my experience was that I would have preferred if she did an intake with me and asked me the questions that she needed to know the answers to. She didn't know anything about my background or about my history or anything like that. So that was kind of strange, and I think that could be improved, but maybe that's a practice thing and not a private practice owner thing. But it's just something to be aware of, again, from that user experience. The other thing that was that could be improved, and that I absolutely recommend, is that you're clear with your clients about the consent form, because that needs to be discussed all the time. So even if a client signs it while they're out in reception, or maybe they sign it because you send it to them electronically and they do it online, it's always important to go over that with them right away when you first meet them, and just make sure that that person really does understand what they've signed and what it means. But she didn't go over any of that. She sort of slid it across the coffee table to me at 10 to 4 and asked me to sign it at the end of the appointment. That was a problem for me, because I didn't get time to read it. I didn't get to ask her any questions about it, and I was rushed. So it would have been much better from a client experience if she said to me, right, here's the consent form, you have signed it, I just want to make sure that you understand everything on it. This is my cancellation policy, Brooklyn. This is my privacy policy, Brooklyn. This is what's going to happen if you miss an appointment, or you can't attend, or you need to reschedule. This is the only time where privacy and confidentiality are breached under, this circumstance, and that circumstance. And do you have any questions? That should have happened at the start, but it didn't. So she's just lucky that I'm a psychologist, or I'm not anymore, but I was a psychologist and I am a therapist. I understand. But what about all the people that she sees that don't have that training and that understanding? Like, what's it like for them? Does she just kind of like spring it on them that they've got a cancellation fee and they don't realise? And she says, well, you signed the cancellation form, but she slid it across the desk to them in the last minute of the session. Do you know what I mean? And they haven't had a chance to familiarise themselves with it. So this is something that's really important, that you do discuss the limits of confidentiality and privacy. You do discuss expectations around payment, cancellation. I would also use this as an opportunity to clarify boundaries and payments or fees around extra contact. So that's contact between appointments. Now, 99% of your clients are going to be very respectful of your time and they're going to leave you alone, but every now and again you're going to get one client that takes up 90% of your time outside of an appointment, because they're bombarding you with emails, phone calls. If you're on social media and you're connected that way in maybe a Facebook group or something like that, they're going to be messaging you, and they'll be messaging you at all hours of the night, asking for your advice and asking for you to do things for them. And if you don't have clear boundaries in place around your communication, and you don't yourself have an idea about how you want to work and manage those boundaries, you're going to make life so much more complicated than it needs to be for you and for the client. It will become hard for you to introduce a boundary with somebody that you've already been having after hours conversations with or weekend conversations with, and it can be very triggering for them. They might feel suddenly like they've done something wrong and they're being rejected, or they're being admonished or told off, or things like that. So it's very hard to introduce it when it's already happening, introduce a boundary when there's a problem already happening. But I would definitely say to all of you, consider putting on your consent form something about additional fees, or even adding a table of fees as an attachment that lists the fees for different types of services that you offer, including contact be it by email, phone, or social media if you're offering that, between appointments, and break it down into how much you're going to charge for things that are going to take you 15 minutes or part thereof, half an hour or part thereof, 45 minutes or part thereof, or a full hour or part thereof, and just have it there in black and white. And you will find that even just having this there and making people aware of it right from the outset of counselling with you can really be a boundary in itself, and it can really, really reduce the pressure on you to reply to things outside of hours. It can also stop you from getting caught up in a cycle of doing things without being paid. And this means that when you do them, you feel good about them because you are now getting paid. But it also stops you from losing personal time and feeling resentful and feeling angry or frustrated or bothered by the fact that you've now got to write this letter or reply to this parent's email or something like that on your downtime. We don't want that. So clarifying boundaries from the outset is something that I really highly recommend, and that wasn't even discussed. So that was another point of the user experience that I found interesting. And yep, I guess then, wrapping up a session at 10 to the hour. Now, I understand this. I do myself say, well, my sessions are 45 minutes and I allow 15 for admin associated with that appointment, whether that's planning for the next session, whether that's me doing some extra research on behalf of my client, maybe it's me fishing around in my Dropbox or in my Canva portfolios for resources that I then want to flick over to my clients. But all my appointments are 45 minutes and I have that 15 minutes to do these other things, so that I don't forget about them, and I do not want to have an admin day where I've got to try and remember what I discussed with that client on that day. So no. So that's how I work, but it didn't happen here. And yeah, I've just forgotten what I was going to say. So just bear with me. It will come back to me, as you know. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. And I state that in my onboarding so people know, yeah, your appointments are 45 minutes. Even when they get the Google Meet calendar booking, it clearly says your appointment is from, the 0:00 to the 0:45. So there's reminders all the way through. And by and large, people are fine with that. They know what's going on. But with this particular lady, she hadn't told me how long to expect for an appointment, and that's really, really important because I need to know so that I can manage my life around the appointment. Is this appointment going to be 50 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes? Like, how long is my appointment going to be for? That wasn't anywhere. And again, from a user perspective, it was problematic for me not knowing. And also, in terms of the duration of the appointment, I don't think it's a good idea to, if you see clients on the 0:00 and you do 50-minute appointments and then you allow 10 minutes yourself after the client's left to type up any notes and do any follow-up and admin and things like that. I don't think it's a good idea, if you forget their appointment and you're 10 minutes late, to then still finish at 10 to the hour so that you keep to your diary. I don't think that's okay at all. I really feel like if you're charging somebody for a 50-minute session, they should receive a 50-minute session. If you're charging them for a 90-minute session and you're late because you forgot it, they should still get a 90-minute session. And yeah, you need to make it up to them. Or if you're going to run to your diary and they're going to have a short session, then you charge them less. Okay? Anyway, so that was another user experience that I wanted to share with you. The next thing is really making sure that you've got a great way of pre-booking further appointments. So she did that. She did say to me, look, I prefer to work weekly. I'll see you next Monday at 3:00. So she did that, which was great. And I really liked that because it left me feeling safe. I knew that I had an appointment coming up, and although I wasn't feeling great about this appointment that we just had, I still had hope. I was hopeful that things would turn around. I wanted things to turn around, and so I was pleased to be able to leave and know I had an appointment booked. I had put it in Google Calendar, so I knew I wasn't going to book anything else on top of it or around it. And yeah, it just all felt good. So I think she did well with that. And from a user experience, highly recommended. In fact, if she wanted to improve that, I would definitely say maybe instead of just booking one session with me, she could have booked out, 3 or 4. That would have made me feel even better. And what would have made me feel even better again is perhaps if she'd gone and taken the time to put them in her diary so that A, she had them, B, she'd remember them, and C, I would get notified with a reminder or with a confirmation email saying you have booked your appointment with this person on this day for this time. That would have just helped in so many ways. So there was that. And then I think the other thing was when I left, I kind of left with nothing, and I think this was a real shame. I think it was a missed opportunity for her to have given me some kind of activity to do. So not necessarily homework, but I really feel like it would have been helpful if she'd given me perhaps a worksheet that had a few journal prompts on, or if she had said to me, hey, I really want you to read this book. You can go to Amazon, get it on Amazon or get it on your Kindle, and I want you to read chapter 1 before our next session. Or if she said to me, I really recommend this app for you, Brooklyn, based on what you've shared today. I want you to go into this app, go over to this section for the meditations, and could you please make a point of getting into a daily habit of doing this meditation before you go to bed or upon waking or something like that. But there was just nothing, so I kind of felt like at a loss. I wasn't really sure what I was meant to be doing. And I think perhaps too this was highlighted again because this is something that's drummed into all the students in PP 101. We talk about this all the time, making sure that people have things that are happening for them between sessions, because without that implementation they can still get benefit, but it's going to take a lot longer compared to if they're not implementing anything, as you know. So that was really important, and I feel like that was a missed opportunity for her. Even if she had sent me a random email like a couple of days after the appointment, said, hey Brooklyn, I was thinking of you and I came across this, I want to share it with you, have a read, see what you think, and we can discuss it at the next session. Something like that would have been helpful, but there was just nothing. And then also when we finished, and I had said to her that's okay, it's not necessary, I'm not going to be booking further appointments, there was no sort of offboarding process. Well, her process was really to send me a text message saying, good luck, Chuck. But that wasn't, to me, very professional, and I don't feel like, again, as a client, I don't feel like I was cared for. I didn't feel like that was a really fantastic way of ending the therapeutic relationship. I felt I'd poured my heart and soul out here and I've got nothing. So I guess what I wanted to share with you today was, as much as we get in our own heads about wanting to work with clients, it's also really important to think about the user experience, to really think about what it's like for your clients to do the day-to-day things with your practice at each of those little touch points. So I guess what I would love for you to think about or reflect on over the weekend, so I'm just looking at pedestrians here, I think what would be really, really helpful is for you to sit down and imagine you're a client and go through the process of working with your practice, and put yourself in their shoes and imagine what it's like for them. What's the user experience for them? And think about it from the beginning of the journey through to the offboarding. So think about how easy is it for them to find your practice online, how easy is it for somebody to refer a client to you? How easy is it for somebody to book an appointment, to pay for that appointment, to complete any paperwork? How easy is it for somebody to actually get started with you in person or online? If you have a physical space, what does the physical space look like and feel like? Is it emanating the vibe of your branding, of your values? And if not, what do you need to do to bring that into deeper alignment? The other things to really think about too are, the user experience when they're in a session with you. So what's the ambience of the room like? What do you need to do there? If somebody's seen you online, what's your background like? Do you need to use, a screen? So on Google Meets, they have lots of different screens that you can use, kind of like on Zoom, different backgrounds. So do you want to use a background? If you're working from your bedroom, it's probably not great, and I've seen it happen. It's probably not great as a therapist for a client to be seeing piles of clothes and laundry stacked up on your bed behind you, because they'll be looking at that, not listening to you. So if that's your situation and you're on a shoestring budget and you're not in a counselling room, or you've chosen to work from home or online or whatever, please make sure that the background is clean and fresh and professional, all those kinds of things, and just use a background if you can't use your real life background at the moment. It's totally fine to use a background. It's preferred actually. So do that. Make it nice for them. Think about, what's your onboarding like for both of those clients, whether they're in person or online, is what I'm talking about here. And also think about what's your offboarding like. So what happens for clients when they wrap up sessions with you, and also what are you doing with and for clients who ghost you? We've all had it happen. You'll be going great guns with a client, and then all of a sudden, poof, they just disappear into thin air, and you don't know what's happened, why, where are they now, what's going on, are they okay? And everything's kind of like this energetic loop is just open for both of you. And we also have sometimes clients that come once or twice and then disappear. We don't see them again. So what are you doing with those clients? What are you doing for those clients? What's your offboarding for them? As well as what's your offboarding process for clients that you love working with who come to a natural conclusion of therapy? What are you doing for them? And then look at your client retention process. So how are you still maintaining communication and care for clients that you've completed courses of treatment with? So all those things are really, 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 really important. And I would just love for you to reflect on your client's experience with your private practice. And I really feel like this is important for all of us, and it's something all of us could absolutely do better. I think this is not about changing things, right? But I think it's about enhancing things. So enhancing things is when we say, how could I make what I'm doing already better? So if you love the counselling space that you're in, for example, you really love the room, you love the furnishings, you love the ambience, I want you still to take a look around and go, what's one thing I could do to make this experience for my client even more, whatever, insert value here. So if your value is nourishing, how could I make this more nourishing? Oh, I know, I could bring in a jug of water with some lemon in it and put it on the coffee table with a glass, and I could put a serviette over the top of the glass, or I could tip the glass upside down or something like that, right? Or if you really loved transparency or something like that, how could I enhance the value of transparency in this room for my client right now? Maybe you put a photo of you and your dog on your desk or on your wall. Now this is something that I do and my dog was even my logo when I had my business under a different name before, because as I mentioned to you, it was the first practice on the peninsula to be offering trained qualified animal assisted therapy. So Gabe, that was his name, his head was in the center of my logo. So I got the idea of really personalizing practice from a doctor that I saw once. Now, I don't remember why I was seeing this doctor. I can't remember. I can't remember. But what I do remember is that he had pictures in his practice of him with his dog, and his dog was, what do they call it? My sister's got one now, a pointer. His dog was a pointer, and it was a photo of him and his dog, and he had like 2 or 3 photos of him and his dog, and one of them was like a professional photo shoot, and the other 2 were just like casual photo shoots. And I really loved seeing them because it made me feel like, oh, he's a real guy, like he's a real person, like I can relate to him. I'm a dog person too, and it formed a connection. So when I have a physical space, I've always got a picture of me and Gabe there. Now it will be Buddy and I if I ever go back to a physical space. But maybe, you know, I'm not saying bring photos of your kids into the practice for people to see, but a photo of you at somewhere local, or a photo of you reading a book, or a photo of something you really like. It's something else that I used to have in my counselling room was on my wall. So a couple of years ago now, when was it? 2019, I think it was. I was invited by Sky in London to go over there and talk to them about manifestation and business. And I went to Hollywood and was interviewed on a program called Life Masters about manifesting in business as well. The 2 interviews were so random. I don't know how they happened, but they happened within like a week of each other. Just out of the blue, I was contacted on Instagram, and next thing you know, everything was booked and I went over. So I went to LA first, and then I did the trip over to London. But what was I going to say? Oh, I've just forgotten it again. Oh my goodness. What was I talking about? I was talking about having the photos and things, wasn't I? And personalising spaces. I can't even remember. Sorry. I'll come back to that. But yeah, that was, I think, you know, personalising, showing people a little piece of you. Oh yeah, I had a picture of myself at Hollywood, you know, with the, I'd taken photos of the pavement it was opposite the Hollywood Walk of Fame, near Ming's Plaza. There's all this paving and it's tessellated tiles, but it's a lot of it's a pink road, and on the pink road made of tiles, there's little smaller black tiles of writing, and it's quotes from people who became famous movie stars, and it's their stories. And I had that up, and photos of me with movie stars. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I had, while I was over there in LA, I got a photo of Rocky, not me with Rocky, but I got a photo of Rocky, and it had been signed by Sylvester Stallone. So I had that up in my practice as well, because when I was first starting my practice, I really, really, really loved and got into things like watching Chariots of Fire, and I really got into Rocky, and I used to watch all the Rocky films, binge them on weekends, and I'll just watch one after the other, and I used to cry because I get very emotional when I'm watching them, and I find them very motivating, and I was like, wow, he's amazing. And I'd always see new things when I watch them, and take away new lessons and new messages when I watch them, and I just loved Rocky so much. And so I had this up on my wall as well, and people used to talk about that. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm just giving you an example of are there opportunities for you to connect in new and interesting ways with your clients, okay? And that was a way that I was able to enhance connection, which was one of my big values. Like, how can I build rapport, and how can I really connect more with my clients and do it in a way that's really authentic? And so that's when I put the photos of Gabe and I around the place, and then I had the photo on the wall of Sylvester Stallone being in the thing of Rocky autographed. I know, so much fun. And I did have some pictures up there of, as I said, the pavement at Hollywood where all the little stories are, because they were so inspiring. In fact, if I can I can't in the show notes of this, I don't think, because I'm recording this on the fly, but I can on my computer. I'll see if I can add them into the show notes, some examples of the stories that I took photos of for you, so you can have a little bit of a look, because they're very, very inspiring. And yeah, think about the values that you have in your practice and whether or not the user, the client, is experiencing all of those values at each and every touch point. That is probably the easiest way for you to start really embodying the things that are important for you in your practice. And again, it's going to help your practice become the go-to practice in your area and help you with client attraction and client retention. Okay, so yeah, I hope that this was really, 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 really helpful. I could talk about this all day long, and we've never had a podcast episode on the user experience before, but just thought it might be interesting for you to contemplate that. And I just want to say thank you so much for being part of my world. I saw in the data for the podcast that we're over 90,000 downloads now, and that's just massive. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that listens, and thank you to everybody that does download episodes. Lastly, just before I finish, please, if you would like help getting more clients for your practice and bringing your practice into alignment, like if you don't have onboarding or offboarding, you don't understand about that, if you don't have a marketing plan, or maybe you don't have a business plan yet, that's totally fine. Because you never learned how to do them, right? And you're probably winging it, and you're probably imagining or feeling like you're doing all of the things. But if you don't know, you don't know, right? And so you're most welcome to come along to a free 3-day workshop that I'm running in July, and I will teach you some of the essential things that you need to know for your private practice. It's going to be workshop style, meaning we're going to be actually doing things on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday together. So it's a done with you process, so that each of those 3 days you will actually leave with a result. Because what's the point of us just chit-chatting, right? And me just giving you resources. I know you're going to download resources and probably never look at them because you're just so busy. And that would break my heart, because my whole intention here is to help you shift and help you have a better experience in your private practice for you. So maybe you already have a full diary and you're not really needing more clients, but for you, maybe it's about, how do I grow and scale? How do I market the practice to attract therapists to the business and to attract subbies or to attract employees? How do I attract new opportunities? How do I attract funding or grants? All those kinds of things, we're going to go over them. So feel free to come along. The link is in the show notes for you. If the link doesn't work, or you're having some difficulty with it, or you can't see it, or maybe because I'm driving at the moment as I'm recording this, maybe I forget to post the link, which is a very real possibility. Please just contact me and ask for your name to be added to the list, and I'll certainly add you to the list. All I need is your name and your email to be able to do that. We start in, what is it now? It's the 7th of July, isn't it? So it's in 3 weeks, and I'm super excited to share it with you. And yeah, have a really, really wonderful weekend. I hope that you get every opportunity to rest, relax, eat, digest, enjoy, live life, play more, and just have a really, really wonderful day. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do every single day with and for your amazing clients. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye for now.